How you doing, good people? This is the 8-Bit Animal, and today we're going to talk about a franchise that, well, a game in a franchise that started life on the Commodore 64 in 1990 of all years. So it was kind of late on that computer, and it got ported to a bunch of other stuff, or sequels and spin-offs showed up on a lot of other stuff. And this title showed up on the NES in 1992. Alas, we didn't get it here in the States though. We did get 16-bit variations on the Genesis and Super Nintendo though, and those were cool. This one feels like those, but it also feels like it was just, it was kind of thrown together, and I'll explain that in a second. Today, we're going to take a look at Super Turrican. Now, Super Turrican, first of all, this title has nothing to do with, I mean, there's no similarity, no inert, deep similarity between this game and the Super NES title that we got with the same type, with the same name rather. Super Turrican for the NES, the levels are all mashups of the first and second titles. And while that might seem like it's remember, we didn't get those games on the NES. Those games were specifically on assorted computer systems. And I mean, we didn't even get this title here in the States anyway. This was exclusive to Europe. So the franchise by default was a lot more popular over there than it was over here. I never knew Turrican was a thing until the Super Nintendo. And I didn't realize that a sequel was put on the Super Nintendo, nor did I realize that there was a Genesis port of this until years later. And because it's on the NES, it's Nintendo hard. They shoehorned a whole lot onto that little 2-action button controller. And some of the controls are kind of weird. Being able to run is kind of weird. Making your character, getting your character to roll and all that different stuff. Some of those things, or turn them into a the blade ball thingy rather. All of those things feel a little weird at first, but you get used to it. That might be the best part of this whole package. That while this game is hard and it can be super brutal, it can also feel way more fair than it probably has any right to feel. The levels are huge. All of the levels are these big labyrinths that you kind of got to work through. And you have a decent amount of time, and you gotta mine for health and all that. You lose a life, you gotta restart a level. There's no checkpoints. It's truly a test of your mettle as a gamer. And I talk about that as a thing. I've talked about that for years. This might be the closest thing to a true test of fortitude on the NES. This might be one of the truest tests that didn't come from Konami or Capcom. And Konami and Capcom gave us Contra and Mega Man, so there's that. But yeah, Super Turrican on the NES isn't an awful game. I would say that being able to play other games in the franchise you realize that this one, while it is a solid game, it doesn't necessarily measure up completely to the other versions of the game with more that were on more advanced systems. And yeah, this one's decent. This one's decent. If you have an NES and you want to try it out, you should definitely figure out a way to try it out. There might be a catch there though. If you are curious about getting yourself a copy of Super Turrican on the NES, first, it's a European exclusive. Make sure you have something that will play it, because it ain't nobody's fault but yours if you buy a European console or a European game and it runs weird on your NES or doesn't run at all on your NES. That's your fault. Now, all that aside, if you want a copy, it's gonna be about 100, 150, something like, maybe more. It's not a cheap video game, but again, 1992, European import. I'm pretty sure because this popped up on mostly on computers, that a lot of people already had games in the franchise and decided they didn't need this one. So there's that. But yeah, Super Turrican on the NES is decent. There is if you want to play some of the other games in the series, there are collections that are out in the wild. Turrican Flashback, Turrican Anthology, Volume 1 and Volume 2, stuff like that. I got a copy of Turrican Flashback from Play Asia about a year and a half ago. And yeah, it has about 4 or 5 games from the franchise on it. Not this one though. Just the ones that are real pretty. But this has been the 8-Bit Animal, and I'll catch you beautiful people tomorrow. Tomorrow. Yep, we told them what it was. They still playing. Get in your plane. We're gonna bomb everything.